Hello and welcome to the Master's Voice, the podcast series from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, and with me today is somebody who's not just a brilliant business leader across a clutch of linear television broadcasting channels, but also someone I hold as a very dear friend for decades now. It gives me great pleasure to invite and welcome Neeraj Vyas, business head, Hindi movies, Sony Sab and Sony Pal at Sony Pictures Networks India. Neeraj, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Pavan. Wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Neeraj, and welcome to the show. And thanks also to Purnima Heble of your team here at SPNI, the PR team. Thank you, Purnima, for having made this possible. So, Neeraj, before we get into the business end of our conversation, what I want to do is quickly dive into a profile of yours. Neeraj Vyas, business head, Hindi movies, Sony Sab and Sony Pal at Sony Pictures Networks India. Heads several businesses, as I just told you there, and he's also been growing them very steadily, he with his team. Neeraj has been with SPN for more than 2 decades. He began his journey in sales for Sony Entertainment Television, SET, and he rose to the position of national sales head for the channel in 2005. Within a span of 5 years, Neeraj was appointed Executive Vice President for Sony Mix, the network's Hindi music channel. Thereafter, he was given responsibility for Max in 2011 and of Sony Sab and Pal 2017. Neeraj has successfully repositioned Sab as a premium entertainment brand and propelled its growth with a new programming lineup and content strategy. And this is going to be one important part of our conversation with Neeraj. Neeraj also holds a diploma in business management from the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management. And Neeraj has passionate interest in entertainment. He earned, with that interest, another diploma from the Xavier's Institute of Communication before embarking on his first career stint with Cineblitz in 1991. He is an avid reader with a keen interest in music and movies and is an amazing singer. And, we've been jamming session partners. So, Neeraj, welcome to the episode.
Super, Pavan. Lovely. Fantastic meeting you and doing this podcast with you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thanks. So, let's get into the business end of our conversation. So, Neeraj, tell me about the roles, responsibilities and priorities you have for all the channels that you handle. I'm sure growth is one and you've been doing that really well. But overall, what is it that you really look at? What are the most important focus areas for you every day?
I think, Pavan, for me, I think the critical thing is not to, keep adding businesses to your portfolio. Whichever portfolio I've been handling and whatever growth we've managed to generate, it's been on the back of, some very, very strategic decisions that we have taken. For example, when we launched Sony Mix, okay, just a small example. There were almost 18 channels in the space at that point of time. Common sense would have told you that was there really a need for another music channel? But when we looked around, we felt that there were so-called music channels, but there was no music in those channels. And your typical 1 hour of music in those days, and I'm talking about 2011 when we launched, was filled with maybe at best 5 to 6 songs, which were mostly free plays coming from music labels, and then almost 35-40 minutes of trailers, which was a source of revenue generation, and the remaining 10 to 15 minutes was advertising. So what you got to see was free promotional material largely. At that point of time, we saw an opportunity to actually pitch music back in the marketplace. We went and did deals with every label in the market. At that point of time, be it T-Series or Sony or Tips or Venus or everybody, virtually everybody. And we said that we will bring music back in the game. And we, as a strategy, decided that, in a given hour, we will play at least 10 songs and just turn it over, switch it to the other side. And it paid off. We departed the entire day with a certain, basic common sense that when you wake up in the morning, you are in a certain mood. To the time you sleep in the night, you are in a certain mood. So it's not that, you like to listen to something without actually feeling it. Right?
The moods and energy levels.
Pretty much something that radio has been doing successfully for many years, but we were the first ones to put it out. The point I'm trying to make, Pavan, is that we saw a need gap being filled, right? Very, very clearly. With Max, many years back, we were the first ones to pioneer the Telugu dubs, which went on to become the rage. And today, you see something like Pushpa, which is a 100 crore, Hindi film, and even Bahubali a few years back. My sense is that Max has played a very big role, very honestly. I'm not trying to sound immodest, but I think we've played a very, very significant role in popularizing this part of cinema that, the West and the North audiences, the Hindi-speaking audiences were not really used to.
Right.
We've played a significant part. And I say this again and again because today, when we step out to talk to consumers, they actually throw names of those stars at us.
Right.
Not all of them, but most of them. Yeah. And once we started doing it, we saw competition also do that.
Right.
So I'm saying need gap is very critical to spot, and need gap is very critical to fill. Max 2, for example, was another case in point where retro films had no place at all. Nobody was doing anything about it.
Right.
Max 2 was born out of that one big need gap, according to me, which I always felt that the stars of the 70s, the Bachchans and the Dharmendras and the Shatrughan Sinhas and the Zeniths and the Shashi Kapoors, were the real stars, were the ones who actually created the larger-than-life persona of films and film stars.
Correct.
And, that cinema was kind of getting lost. So, and we had a whole catalogue and a whole library, and we weren't really doing anything about it. Hence Max 2. Max HD was technically a very different feed altogether. Rock's HD was again something that was, very, very different from the music that was being played. Each of the channels that I worked on, like I said, it's very critical to spot the need gap.
Excellent.
And then do something about it.
Absolutely. And these are genres which have always been very, very popular. Unfortunately, in their very small vision, the rest of the marketplace sort of took it for granted and said, "Ye to ho gaya, ab kya hona hai?" But you came back and you re-established those. And those genres and those properties have been massive. Which brings me to another very interesting thought. You recently actually came to a point that would have been unthinkable for a fan of Sony Sab several years ago. You have brought it, the channel, to a point where it stands farthest from its comedy channel only offering. Walk us through the genesis of that strategy, because I think it's a brilliant strategy. And you had the damn guts, I don't want to use a stronger word there, but you had the guts to say, fine, comedy has been sustaining us and, everybody knows we are comedy, we are a fabulous family-friendly channel. But you said, no, let's push the envelope. What was the thinking behind that? And today it's at a wonderful point, the inflection point, which is Garud. So just walk us through that.
Okay, let me be brutally honest. When I walked into Sony Sab, I realized that it was kind of a one-horse race as far as the product was concerned. It was largely one show, one big defining show called Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. And it wasn't a very great-looking channel. It wasn't very, creatively, not very well juiced out. A lot of Me Toos of Tarak were being made at that point of time. It wasn't really good looking. It wasn't really packaged as well as it could have been. So there were a lot of things to do. So we said, okay, let's make better looking shows. Let's get a little more serious about the casting. Let's put out funny comedy shows. Let's write them better, and so on and so forth. So I actually put in a good year and a half of my own time and energy and everything, hoping that all of this would recast the channel. I was seriously wrong. And it took me a good year and a half to realize that it is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to sustain a comedy show.
Absolutely.
Very, very, very difficult. It is almost impossible to write quality stuff, quality characters, and even more difficult to execute in a situation where you have to, churn out 17 minutes of footage every day.
And not just one show, because you're a comedy channel, so you want many.
Right. So I realized that, even with good casting and good production values and even slick marketing, we weren't really getting anywhere. And it was kind of pretty self-defeating to believe that this would at some point of time change. In that whole slew of shows that I commissioned as soon as I came on, there was one standout show, which for me was an experiment at that point of time, which actually opened my eyes to a lot of things that we could do. That show was Tenali.
Tenali Raman.
Now, Tenali, it was technically not a routine Sony Sab show. Okay, it wasn't.
Generically.
It was not a sitcom. Okay, neither was it drama. It was about a character. It was almost historic in the way it happened. It was about a witty man who managed to get out of tricky situations. And Tenali, I think, because it was pretty well produced, and a lot of credit to Contillo, the production house, Abhimanyu, and Krishna Bhardwaj, who played the character. I think all of us suddenly saw a lot of light coming out of that show, that this is a product that has resonated far and wide across target groups, across demographics, across markets. And this could be the new direction for us.
Wow.
Very honestly.
And then how did that thought progress through different kind of shows that you brought up?
So we went and we vigorously spoke to people, and this was pre-COVID, so we were free to travel and free to meet. Big believer of research. Right from my IPL days, I've been now constantly talking to consumers, which helped me a lot for Mix as well. And there's one very wonderful insight we came across. Very, very wonderful. I can't forget it for the rest of my life. When we were in a focus group somewhere in Jaipur, and it came out and somebody said that, जितनी इंसान की खुशी बढ़ती है, उतनी दुनिया में इंसानियत बढ़ती है.
क्या बात है. जितनी इंसान की खुशियां बढ़ती हैं, उतनी दुनिया में इंसानियत बढ़ती है. Oh, so the rise of humaneness around you is directly linked to the happiness of every individual.
If you feel good about something, you tend to carry it forward.
Spread that happiness.
Tend to spread it. If you're in a good mood, if you're cheerful, then you spread the cheer. You give it out. So I thought it was a very powerful insight. And we said, okay, let's take this and let's base our entire philosophy around this.
Okay.
So where do we spread from here? Where do we go from here? We can't do crime, we can't do detection, we can't do historic beyond a point, we can't do mytho beyond a point, we don't do soaps for sure. So what can we do? So we said, okay, let's stick to hope and happiness, not comedy. Very, very clearly not comedy.
But comedy would be a part of the bouquet.
Fun would be part of the bouquet. Goodness would be part of the bouquet.
Right.
The word comedy doesn't exist for us anymore, very honestly. Which is when we said, okay, let's do something, let's put money where our mouth is. And we went ahead and commissioned a show called Aladdin. Yeah. Which again was completely against the grind, where everybody else
Sony
was.
Sab now.
Yeah, kind of. Aladdin actually kicked it off. Tenali before that. And we launched Aladdin at 9 o'clock, super prime time. And it opened to a 2 rating and went on to do a 2.5, which was the highest that we've ever seen at that point of time.
Wow.
Again, I think more than the ratings, it broke the shackles, so to say, for us. It
reassured you, right?
Reassured us that, okay, this is a platform that people will come to if you manage to put out something that's differentiated and which is put out well, which is marketed well, which looks good, which is casted well, and is texturally different and is differentiates.
I must say this here. Kudos to you, because you listened to the market. You had some thought that was growing. Tenali had already set the whole sort of neev dal di thi. He had put the foundations. And then suddenly when you saw this opportunity and this feedback, and then you saw Aladdin, you said, okay, let's, put my money where my hunch is. And fabulously won out really well. So congratulations, great.
Thank you, sir. So Aladdin, was something that really, really helped us, think different. And then I think we haven't looked back. Be it Balvi Returns, which was again scaled to a different level, to Bhakar Badi, a show that I'm emotionally very close to. Bhakar Badi was again, pretty much in our DNA, a fun show, but not technically a comedy. So this was the first time that we actually tested the theory. A lot of emotions, but two warring families, Maharashtrian family and a Gujarati family. And without the normal cliches. Because it's important to do it without the regular cliches.
And no slapstick comedy.
And no slapstick comedy at all. And there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of, not high drama, but a lot of drama. And a lot of fun.
Lovely. You've actually nuanced it so beautifully, and it's really progressed like, it seems amoeba-like, but I think you've given it wonderful guardrails in which to grow. And Neeraj, donkeys years ago, I had worked on shows like Art and CID. And you and I and all of us, we did that in a time and age when there were weeklies. Absolutely. And there were 26 to 35 properties to establish, which was like crazy. And so we know how difficult it is to build brand equity for one show. You've gone ahead and multiplied the brand equity for Sony Sab itself, which to my mind and my belief has always been the single linear channel with perhaps the highest ROI when you look at the costs that used to go into it, and even now. So that's my belief. You don't have to substantiate it. But I think you did really, really great work, and it's very difficult to do what you're doing, and really more strength to you.
So, it just set up a series of things that we wanted to do after that, be it Madam Sir again, which was about, a ladies police station, in Lucknow with a cast dominated by women. Wagli Ki Duniya is something that I'm very proud of. Again, completely not in the regular mold of TV. Brought back a product which had happened on Doordarshan almost 30 years back. Again, and we've been extremely straightforward with the way we've approached the stories and situations in Wagli Ki Duniya. Very contemporary, very now, very real problems. Again, it's not a comedy show. We have taken very, very serious issues, and again, it's worked across target groups, it's worked across markets, and again gives us the strength to believe, Pavan, very importantly, that you can differentiate in your content strategy as long as your content is good, and if it resonates, and if your characters are immersive, then you need not have shows with a boy in a stubble, and two girls fighting over him.
How tellingly and softly told. And that's Neeraj, always soft-spoken. So Neeraj, I've known you from our beginning in Hindi GECs and more than 2 decades, more than that. And we launched Sony TV together, Sony Entertainment Television. So I know what your career has been like so far also. And you were one of the best sales heads we had. So when a sales head becomes a business head, of course the responsibilities will change, but how does the thinking change? What did you have to sort of teach yourself or be more conscious about? And what other maybe skills or, people awareness or whatever else that you had to bring into the whole space? Because I'll tell you what, I'm asking this on behalf of the marketing and the sales people who are at decently senior levels and who might be looking at some possible business head opportunities. So when you from ad sales head and a very, very well proven ad sales head, when you got the business leadership opportunity, what were the new learnings or unlearnings that you had to do?
I was blessed that I spent a good 15 years in sales, television sales. And, today, what helps me more than anything else is the fact that I understand data, I comprehend data, I understand sales, I understand sales deals, I understand things like CPRP, effective rates, every conceivable jargon that sales teams normally go through. It also, gives me a very balanced outlook towards the entire business, very honestly, which I think is a big positive for me, and I think has been probably a great advantage for me, because I spent a good many years in sales, and then I got into roles that I always wanted to get into, So be it music or movies or even the IPL, and 5 years of IPL and 5 years of marketing the IPL and sub and everything after that. What it does, Pavan, very honestly, is keeps you very grounded, because you know that this is what you need to spend and this is what you'll end up making. So I think your P&L benchmarks, become a lot more sharper. Your ability to integrate brands, your ability to understand a client, ability to interact with the client.
And without compromising the engagement for viewers.
Absolutely. So I think I have been at a great advantage having done this. And, from the few people that I've seen in the industry, I think sales guys make great CEOs, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Very clearly, because I think we are very target oriented. We are, sales teaches you to be very, very focused. There is a pot to be chased at the end of the rainbow almost every day. And all of this also kind of trains you to work in a very rigorous way, in whatever other role that you get into, And I think, like I said, so the business side also gets sharpened because you understand P&Ls, like I said. And if you marry that smartly with content, and obviously content is not something that you learn, it's a germ that you have, you grow it.
Correct.
Right? And I think a combination of both is, I think, lovely to have, and I've been very, very fortunate.
Another thing is that as a sales head, and a sales head who himself is an excellent creator, if you look at music, if you look at other aspects of stuff that you've done, that whole orientation of how do you make great content which resonates and in which any sales or whatever else you do is of the most native sort, which doesn't impinge upon, the fun element or the entertainment element. Entertainment can come from sadness and happiness or whatever.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Wonderful, excellent. So, Neeraj, tell me about the movies genre. I'm switching tacks here. As a genre, on television, what is the size, the scope of this space, the challenges, the opportunities present? And you did tell me how you looked at some fabulous opportunities and created those pillars of, let's say, evergreen movie entertainment in India, whether it was retro films, whether it was, the star value that you brought up, and then the dubs, etc., the localized stuff. But give me the overview as a thought leader in the space, as a head of a movies cluster at Sony.
So I think bad news here, to be honest. I think the last 2 years, COVID and the whole speed up of OTT has hit this genre the hardest, very, very clearly. If you see the reach numbers, if you see people watching movies on TV, all of it has gone down very, very clearly. Two things: all the OTT apps available with people, the number of smartphones going up, smartphone penetration, Wi-Fi penetration, all of this is leading to a lot of content being viewed on the small screen, which is largely the phone. Piracy only triples the problem for us, not just doubles, it triples the problem for us. Because what happens now, Pavan, is that earlier, pre-OTT, you had a film which was very, very, very aggressively marketed. It was even a large film or a medium-sized film. So you had a month and a half, 45 days of publicity. Your songs, your free plays used to begin on music channels, right? Your trailers began 30 days, 20 days before. There was a lot of marketing. The stars went all over. They came to the malls. They went to public places. All of that. So the film had some kind of a voice. Okay, it then went to the theaters. If it did well, it was a blockbuster. And then exactly after 60 days, it came on air. Okay, or maybe after 90 days, it came on air. When I say air, I mean linear. Yeah. OTT has completely changed all of that. Thanks to COVID, a lot of films, one, did not get a theatrical release. Two, because of the premium that they got from the OTTs, they went directly onto OTT. Okay.
They were also produced and ready, and they had to sort of make some money, otherwise it would keep getting burnt.
Correct. No, so absolutely understandable what they did. I think there's a business to be, to run and sustain, and I think they were well within their senses to do that. But what's happened, Pavan, that
it's becoming habit.
It's becoming a habit. It's becoming a habit. It's becoming the gap between theaters to OTT, and then to linear has only widened. Because it's now anywhere between 90 to 120 days from the release date of the film.
Coming to linear.
But what happens is that the films are getting juiced out completely on OTT.
And remember, in the golden days, 2-3 years before now, before the pandemic, all of that activity was only to ensure that the audiences came for the first day. After that, the content would talk and the rest would go out.
I don't think that has changed, And you're right, because in a way, what was the true test of a film on linear? The true test of the film on linear was the ratings in the fifth run.
Absolutely.
Not the first run.
Absolutely.
Now today what happens is that a big blockbuster with a big actor gets you a very average rating in the first run. Because you're running less second days, you're marketing it and all of that. Right. But it collapses from the second run onwards. So the economics don't make sense anymore. Unfortunately, I think this genre is in trouble.
So have the rates generally in the media marketplace gone down for the movies cluster? Because I'll tell you something. I mean, I still feel that movies are a very appointment viewing offering on linear television. And, if there's something really nice that comes up, yes. But then the cost of the acquisition of a new one and it being available to you very soon enough for you to be able to say, okay, I will pay extra because I'm getting it first. That's just gone out of the window, right?
I think it all begins with the price that the actors charge. I think if that math gets corrected, and that doesn't look like it is ever going to get corrected because, one hasn't seen that happen anywhere. Whether it's India or whether it's Hollywood or, globally, European cinema, anywhere. Just when things were looking bad for linear, OTs come and paid all the premium to them. Right. So there is no reason for an actor to lower his price. And that, kind of imbalances the entire chain of economics. And which is still a problem that we have. Because today a big actor takes away almost everything. A producer today, a normal producer is actually a line producer. Okay. He's working on a 15% margin. Right. The biggest names. Because the main actor is always the co-producer. So it's a different math altogether, Pavan, very, very clearly.
That's very insightful. That's very interesting to know.
It's a complicated
Not many
reality.
people would know this. At the same time, I do feel, Neeraj, that, and I don't know what your view is, but I think theatres are opening up. As soon as 100% occupancy is allowed and there is no social distancing sort of demanded for safety and the pandemic we see the wake of and the end of, I think theatres are an experience that every family loves to go and have. Okay, that's one. Secondly, OTT still, if you ask me, I mean, there are some 400 million downloads or 500 million downloads, but for God's sake, there's not more than 65 to 70 million paying OTT subscribers in the country all put together. That's one. So it's still going to be a fraction of linear television, for sure. And I just feel that it's only a matter of time before things come back because most of the OTT platforms are not even making money. They are still in the red. And, so for how long will they be digging into their socks to pull out all these big monies that they are throwing? It's just, they're going to burn themselves out, I think.
Everybody's playing the stock market paper. I don't think anybody is looking at the money in the bank in any case. Right. Those days are, they died with us.
Thank God we're still alive though. Yeah, no, you're right. And it's, anybody's guess. But I still feel that movies will always be right up there. You have been steeped in the best traditions of television, right from the days when we had to create...
Days of Umatics.
Umatics and Mr. Vinayak there, and then suddenly we had Betacam SPs and we didn't even have a studio, and one used to go and do sound voiceovers for all the sales guys you used to keep bringing, and I used to keep getting called every night saying, come to Gen Studios and do this. इस कार्यक्रम के प्रायोजक हैं so and so. वो मैं करता था. But those were great days, and that was the kind of stuff that actually helped build Sony.
All of us. I think helped all of us in our careers.
Absolutely. So I want to say that you, from those days till today, completely digital maven that you've become, and as a business head and all of that. So tell me, how do you use the synergies between Sony Live and your other digital platforms for your promotions, for all the linear offerings that you have?
Honestly, Pavan, television viewership, as everybody knows, has been sliding and sinking. But it doesn't mean that television content is not being viewed. Okay, people are viewing content according to their own convenience, on their own devices, at a time of their convenience, and at the price point of their convenience.
Right.
Which means that if somebody decides not to watch Wagle Ki Duniya at 9 o'clock on Sub TV, that's because today he has the convenience of watching it on Sony Live at 11.
Right.
Okay. So I think Sony Live or any OTT platform that belongs to a broadcaster is a very, it's a regular shift that we are seeing very, very clearly.
Also a multiplier, do you think? Because somebody who could not have watched it on television would not have watched it here, but now they can.
Absolutely. So I think from a catch-up point of view, there is only a limited amount of airtime available with a linear broadcaster to pitch the show again or to put the show again. If I could probably have 2 repeats of the same show. Okay, right. But if somebody wants to watch episode number 56, which would have happened a year back, of Agle Ki Duniya, then he goes to Sony Live and watches it. Right. Catch-up is a reality that is possible only with OTT, and I think that's a great feature that OTT has. My sense is that going forward, brands like Sony Sab will all become very important cogs for something like a Sony Live.
Excellent.
Very, very clearly, we will all coexist. Linear television will never die in India because India is a very, very different country. It's a very wide country.
And there's another maybe 40-odd million homes that are still not having their first TV sets.
Absolutely. With a very large FTA market and so many other things which are very unique to us. But at the same time, I think, OTTs belonging to broadcasters are very logical extensions of where that content is going to be seen and is always going to be available. So I think the focus for us is to create and strengthen brand Sab. While we continue to market each of the individual shows and keep launching, clearly, with the strategy to be differentiated, the focus will also be now to grow brand Sab, because brand Sab is the destination that people should come to shop onto, say, a Sony Live. For me, that is the focus area.
Another thing is that if you look at all the other broadcasters, GECs, whether they are networks or whether they are individual channels within their OTT platforms, okay, not one of them, actually, your competitors, has something which is so fabulously 100% family friendly. And this is a unique selling point. It's a big multiplier.
That's the belief that we have. That we are unique in the way we are, whereas everybody else is pretty female focused in their content and very rating focused. My sense is that we now have to be balanced, even at the cost of probably losing a few ratings. Balance between the paying consumer, balance to be poised for the future, and clearly own the family focus.
And which you do brilliantly, especially with Sony Sab. And also the manner in which you promote it, the manner in which your shows are written, and I think really that family friendliness is part of the SPNI DNA, if you ask me. If you look at Sony Entertainment Television also, I think they don't go over the top. On OTT, sometimes you might find something which is a little edgy, but then the people think, and I'm not talking about Sony Live or Voot or anything else specifically, I'm generally making a statement here. But even there, you all are circumspect, which is a very nice quality. And I don't feel nervous when I sit with my daughter to watch something, or ye kya bolega, ye kya bolegi. It's really, and my children are very forward thinking and they laugh at the best jokes and everything with mom and everybody, but I still feel a little thing, oops, ye kya aaya? Acha beta, I'll just come, I got a call and I get out of the room. Tum dekho.
Take that away from us.
You can't, absolutely. And you mentioned about, not being female focused all the time. One little thing I heard was from one Zarina of General Entertainment, very good production house, popular and successful. One of their strategies is have the best looking guys in the soaps, but have very ordinary looking PLU quotient wali people like us girls, so that all the women and all the young girls who are looking at the show and watching it saying, अगर इस साधारण लड़की को इतना अच्छा दिखने वाला बंदा मिल गया तो फिर मुझे भी मिल सकता है. It's like just stoking those aspirations and bringing them back. Now that is one way of looking at it, and it has worked for all their shows.
I can take a guess, but I don't want to.
No. Oh, I have enormous respect for her, and I always say Jai Mata Di to her. She's an amazing, amazing person, and really a lot of respect. So, So Neeraj, you've done well, but tell me, how did the pandemic actually, to what extent did it hit? All channels it did. And if you want to share anything of how it sort of hit the numbers earlier and where you all are right now, and how long do you think will it take for entertainment also, the business of linear and digital entertainment, to sort of bounce back?
Honestly, I think we were dealt with a double blow. Pandemic happened exactly on the back of NTO.
Yes.
And so it was a very serious double whammy, just when we were, groping and trying to understand. And we clearly saw, just to give you very specific examples, that pre-NTO, for example, when we say we, I mean the movie channels and
in the industry,
subsector. Correct. In the movies, for example, the Max Cluster and the Z Cinema channels and
all the Star
Gold channels and all of those channels, we were in the range of anywhere between 40 to 45% reach. Okay. That today is anywhere between 25 to 30%. The GECs were all between, say, anywhere between 32 to 37, 38% reach. Everybody is now between 20 to 25. Some of them are even below that.
All right.
Okay, so very clearly, I think the NTO made television expensive. There was a time when a viewer paid $350 and got 400 channels. Didn't care what he wanted to watch or not watch, as long as he got them for that kind of money. NTO changed that to 15 channels for $350 or 30 channels for $450, which meant largely that he had to pick from genres and he had to make up his mind in terms of what to watch, which package to take, and so on and so forth. So if he had one broadcaster package, okay, then he probably took the second, but he did not take the third and the fourth.
Right.
Okay. So very clearly, homes which had everything did not have everything after the COVID, after the NTO. Just when we were coping with that is when COVID happened, and which meant that there was no content, there was no fresh content, and we were all playing repeat content. Okay. And then suddenly people got to see fresh content on OTT, and Wi-Fi happened, and broadband happened in people's homes. All of this wasn't the norm. Today it is. It's very normal and simple today. But 2.5 years back, when it all started, there weren't too many people wanting to do all this. Today you have people, with broadband connections in slums as well. Just because your kids had to, get online and so many things, So all of these things have pushed the button very clearly. I think we are very severely challenged on distribution.
The whole sector,
the whole industry is still very severely challenged. We've had a lot of very, very real cord cutting. People have cut the cord. People are watching television content on catch-up OTT. They are not viewing by appointment because they now know that there is a way to go around it.
Correct. And fit it in their
schedule. So I think a lot has changed very, very clearly. My sense is that this is the future. There's no point cribbing about it. Like I said, the focus is to get the brand as strong as possible to find its own niche and identity and keep working on it. And hoping that you straddle both the mediums, OTT as well as linear, as long as you can.
And so very smartly with Sony Sab and with Garud, instead of being sort of restricting your marketing to the main metros, you actually went to the back of beyond to all those points of religious and Hindi speaking market sort of salience.
We felt we had an opportunity here. Sab is seen as a very West focused brand. Right. Beyond the point. That's because of Tarak Mehta and Lineage and West focused Gujarati content and all of that. It's a mindset. It's not true technically. But with Garud, we had an opportunity to do that. We were telling a completely new, untold story. Right. And we wanted a lot of people to know that.
Now that you've taken it across the country, different beautiful hotspots in the Hindi-speaking markets, let's put it like that. Connected mythologically, connected religious kind of sentiment point of view type also wise. Are you also now then sort of cementing the awareness of Sab in those markets?
I would want to do that very, very clearly. We are waiting for Garud to settle down and do that for us very, very clearly, because this is one product which, according to me, will cut through virtually the entire market.
So what's your sense of how Garud has been received so far? Whether it's from the, media buyers space or whether it's from whatever you hear from viewers, friends, etc.
So I think there was initially a lot of anxiety because a product like that coming out of Sab was something that was not expected very, very clearly. And but I think the anxiety was even true internally. We were also pretty anxious. But I think once we saw the product, once we were certain that all the tech that had gone into it came out the way it was planned. I think my sense is that it may be a gradual reality for a product like Garud to be kind of seen and recognized on a platform like Sab. But I think, I genuinely believe, and I'm not just being optimistic, I believe that it can change a lot of things for us. I genuinely believe that if people discover the brand, discover the product, I think it's going to do some serious, good.
I'm inclined to agree with you because I wrote a longish piece on this and I've been sort of very emotionally close to the entire Sony family, and it's a fondness I have, but I tried to be very objective about it too. Tell me, didn't the same kind of skepticism or nervousness sort of manifest itself when Aladdin was coming up?
So Aladdin was, a lot fantasy, a lot more adventure, a lot more fun, and a little less complicated in terms of execution, in terms of VFX, graphics, so many things. With Garud is pure mytho,
Yes.
and that's something that we've never embarked on. Again, a story that nobody knows about beyond a point.
Yes.
It's a unique story, and we decided to do it because there is a hell of a lot of story around it.
Mother-son relationship.
So your emotions, his whole travel, his fight with the gods, to get the nectar for his mother. So many things.
And her own
secret. And her own secret. Her own secret. And it's a very bitter secret.
Wow.
With Garud, I think we've taken on a lot more than any other show. Very honest.
Really, kudos for that. Really excellent. And as you could see from all my promptings of what's there in the show, I've been watching it and following it. So yeah. Another question now. This is about somebody who wants to come to you and says, "Sir, I want to work with you." And when somebody comes to you, HR will send you a profile, and let's assume obviously they'll only send you a profile of somebody who is sort of fulfilling all the criteria they've set forth. What are the qualities or values that you will definitely look for and you will want the person to have? Otherwise, it could well be a deal breaker.
So I think the core thing for me, Pavan, and I have carried with me from the time I was in sales, and I think it hasn't changed, is to spot the hunger in a person, is to see the fire in somebody's belly. Everything else can fall in place. That hunger, that fire, you call it desperation, you call it aggression, is the most important factor for me. Very, very, very clearly. I like people who want to achieve. I like people who want to shift the paradigm, because I think that's a quality that I seek in almost everybody that I work with, very, very clearly. And I get very disheartened when I don't see it with people. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10.
Wonderful.
I think what I missed out on, besides the fire in the belly, is how rounded the person is, and I'm not talking about his qualifications. Is the candidate somebody who likes sports? Is the candidate somebody who likes music? Is he somebody who likes music? And I'm talking about things that are specific to our business. Is he a well-rounded person? He, she.
Right.
Is that person well-rounded? Is he a reader? Is he chirpy? Is he witty? So many things. I don't think qualifications matter beyond a point. Because if you have most of these abilities, I think you can manage your life well enough.
And in fact, teamwork also, because an average person who works with a team works far better than a brilliant person who sits in one corner.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Neeraj, I really have enjoyed this conversation and I found so many insights right from the get-go when you spoke about, about your businesses and how you head them. And you came out with a lot of insights on how to look at the same thing in a manner that, gets you straight as the crow flies to the core, to the value, to the pearl that is right down. And you really pulled them up nicely. So I enjoyed my conversation with you, Neeraj. What did you think?
I think it was a relief, I think, for me. More because you're a friend as well, Pavan. And somebody who's been part of the business and not just a journalist. I think the fact that you've been in a media company yourself, you bring a lot to the table. And I'm not saying this to make you feel good, but I mean it.
Thank you.
And, you've been a programming person yourself, so you know what it entails. And, all the hardships that we go through and, everything else that happens on a Thursday when the ratings happen and, all of that. So I think, like I said, it's been a pleasure. I think your questions were bang on, very honestly. And which is one of the big reasons I enjoyed it. So Thank you so much. Superb, Pavan.
Thank you very much, Neeraj.
And also want to tell you, Pavan, that you guys are doing a great job with Mediabrief.com. I think the sharpness that I see in the understanding of the business is very unique. One doesn't see that, to be honest, and I can be completely candid with you. One speaks to a lot of people around, and in the next 30 seconds you realize that this person is doing something which is something that he or she does not understand beyond a point. But that's not the case with you and your team. I think it's wonderful, to be talking to a team of people who are insightful and who are genuinely, who genuinely understand the modalities of the business. So great job, Pavan.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Neeraj. The Master's Voice podcast has got elevated with your presence in it. Thanks for all the information, the insights, the guidance, the knowledge, and your views. And you've been extremely candid, Neeraj. And, this is your host and friend Pavan Chawla. You've been listening to Neeraj Vyas and me in conversation. Neeraj Vyas, business head Hindi movies, Sony Sab and Sony Pal from Sony Pictures Networks India. And I think Neeraj is one of the smartest, most astute and most forthright business leaders. A great mix of sales and business and thought leadership today. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast series on Mediabrief.com. This is your host and friend Pavan Chawla saying, stay safe, take care, test negative but remain positive. Bye-bye.